Hello, today I'd like to say what I think needs to be said all along. Pokemon on the handhelds at least has officially failed when it comes to 3D. Now, long story short, Pokemon X and Y came out, and that game had some terrible, terrible graphics. Yeah, I know, I'm supposedly some Gen 1 or graphics whore, or whatever name you want to call somebody who disagrees with popular opinion this week, but honestly, the graphics in this game, they just look terrible. And I don't just mean technically, I mean the art style. I don't know if Pokemon X and Y was trying to be cool, cel-shaded, or what, because let's be honest, let me just say this. There are better games that did cel shading, such as the 3 Shin Megami Tensei games using the Nocturne engine, which are Nocturne and the 2 Digital Devil Saga games. Those games did cel shading a lot better than this game did, but not just that, but when you compare 3D Pokemon to, let's just say, 2D Pokemon, you'll notice a step back, and this new Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, this lets anybody have a perfect opportunity to compare just how bad Pokemon has been when it's come to 3D. It's a major step back. Not only are the graphics technically horrible, but at least in 2D, you can get away with the graphics being dated as long as it's visually pleasing. With 3D, though, you can't do it as easily. Take a look at Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, the originals, not Emerald. I'm talking about Ruby and Sapphire. Now, this is what Pokemon Ruby looked like on the Game Boy Advance. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look too bad. Sure, it has the generic Super Nintendo game look, but considering how the Pokemon game before this looked like an NES game, this is a step up and it doesn't look too bad. Let's be honest here, it looks alright, and did I mention the game ran at 60 frames per second? Something that no future Pokemon game or generation ever since has been able to do. Sure, Black and White had 60 frames per second battles, but the second you were in the overworld, it was back to 30 frames per second. And honestly, this was one of the better Pokemon games too, especially because this was one of the few Pokemon games where they dared to make radical change, something you might not see nowadays. But then look at the current one, and what do you see? They tried to make it 3D and it looks bland. Good lord. This is supposed to be a 2014 game, and it looks terrible. Like, there was no effort put into this whatsoever. It just looks terrible. It's got the same low resolution texture, poor character model design of X and Y, and it doesn't even look that great for an art style either. It's gotta have one of the worst art styles I've seen in a video game, especially one that tries to be cartoony and stuff. No. This looks terrible. It doesn't have that anime art style that other games have pulled off better, like, say, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne with its dark anime art style. It pulled that off pretty well. What's this game have? It just looks like garbage. You've got low quality textures. I still remember X and Y, the screenshots of it. Like, let me post one now. Look at this. Look how bland this entire game looks. And don't tell me that it's really complex, because it's not. They're just a bunch of canned animations. And here's the thing. This is on a handheld system from 2012. We're not living in 2004 anymore. Nowadays you have cell phones that can run games that took a high-end PC in 2004 to run just fine. You've got the Nvidia Shield and the Tegra Note 7. Those things can run Doom 3, and if you don't know, Doom 3 at one point was that game you used to see in computer magazines. If you read those at the time, they talk about Doom 3 benchmark. How well can this computer run Doom 3? And they'd have the frame rates listed right there. And now it's 2014, and you've got this game, which looks... at times this looks like a bad Sega Model 2 game. Yes, I went there, and actually, the Sega Model 2, the games in that had more effort put into this. The background wouldn't just be a flat thing of trees, like as you can see here. and it wouldn't have issues struggling to run it either like the 3DS does. And keep in mind, this is the same system that can run this game, Resident Evil Revelations. This is actually a 3DS game you're looking at, and look how much better lighting, look how much better textures, look how much better detail this game has than Pokemon X and Y. What does Pokemon X and Y look like next to this? It looks bland and generic. Same with games such as Monster Hunter. Same with games such as Shin Megami Tensei 4. Put those games next to Pokemon X and Y suddenly looks like the game it is. And not just the graphics, but the art style too. This game pulls off its art style so much better than Pokemon X and Y's. And honestly, let me get to the last thing. Let me show you the last game I'm going to show here next to X and Y and the new Pokemon remakes, which are running on the same engine as X and Y. Now, this isn't the best screenshot I could find to prove my point, but it was the only one I could find with May without having to dig through the horrors of Google image search. Long story short, this is pretty much what the player models in Colosseum and XD looked like. They looked like the actual anime characters, or game characters, or whatever. And then you look at the remakes, and what do they look like? They look like crap. I mean, you would have thought that Game Freak could have come along, but let's be honest. It's 2014, and they still can't pull off 3D that looks like a 2014 game. I mean, this is where handhelds have made games like the 3DS. Resident Evil Revelations can do better graphics than Pokemon Colosseum, and yet you've got the new Pokemon game with a terrible art style that looks like a blatant cash-in. So what is my point here? Honestly, they should go back to 2D if they can't pull off a 3D game that doesn't look like it would be something you'd be seeing on my cousin's old Packard Bell with a 3DFX Voodoo 3 card in it. If it looks like that, then maybe they're doing something wrong, because the 3DS is clearly capable of more than this. And what? X and Y was so unoptimized, it had to turn off 3D mode for much of the game. That should tell you something. And honestly, plus maybe then if they made it 2D again, they could make something that runs at 60 frames a second and is fast paced again. I mean, you've got 2D games with pretty good art styles, such as you've got fighting games, for example, that can pull it off good, so why not Pokemon? I mean, honestly, the 3D art style is going nowhere. If it can't get it to look good, they should just give up on it and go back to 2D. And I'm not trying to be a hater or somebody stuck in the past. It's just that simple. Because there are games that do cel-shaded much better than this. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and please, I don't know what to say anymore about this.